I look at brewing beer from a very artistic standpoint, and I like the extension of that art to go through into the package. I just started collecting vinyl records in the last year, and I just love opening those things up. I love, like I was a kid, like every CD I had, I'd just sit there and read the liner notes for hours on end while listening to it. So this is, like, the artwork and the presentation of these beers is, to me, just equally as fulfilling as brewing them, you know?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside. I'm your not-so-humble host, Carp, and today we are in the proper Ottawa downtown area. Joining us is Matt with Tooth and Nail Brewing.
How's it going?
Good. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to speak with us today about your passion in your beer and your business.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Brought me out some 4 great-looking beers for me to try. What's this first one I'm going to be having?
That's our German Pilsner Vim Vigor.
Okay.
Really, I'm a bit of a lager enthusiast. You know, Vim Vigor was one of the first brews that we brewed here, and it's essentially taking the idea of a German Pilsner and what I like to say, almost North Americanizing it, and just more and more hops. So it's got a really nice, firm, kind of knife-like bitterness to it. The hop character is extremely floral and a little bit on the spicy side, but more floral. And just has a really pleasant, delicate aroma, extremely high drinkability, and finishes with just a really nice, firm, flavorful bitterness, which is generally one of my favorite characteristics of a beer.
Alcohol percentage on this?
5.2.
Okay. As we do.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers or toast. It's an interesting take on a Pilsner. It's very tasty. 5%, pretty crushable. Good summer beer, I'd say. Yeah. Delicious beer. So speaking of the beer, what's the beer story? What made you create Tooth and Nail?
I mean, it's probably, just like anyone else, a pretty long story. You know, I was working in restaurants and bars, bartending, serving, stuff like that, trying to figure out what to do with my life, and knew that wasn't the end game for me. And, you know, it honestly is just one of these things where, like, out of the blue one day, it just kind of hit me. And at the time, I had been very passionate about beer. I was learning about beer. I was teaching staff training at a beer restaurant I was working at, and really just dove in. And then from there was like, well, trying to figure out a career path for myself. And like, well, you know, becoming a brewer is not something they really like ease you into in high school, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that question of like, well, who does that? And I'm sitting there drinking a glass of beer going, well, clearly people do this. So then I just kind of dove in head first, and I did a bunch of traveling around the world and visited a number of different breweries and hung out at some places for a week at a time to see if it was the kind of work I would enjoy. And then enlisted in brewing school and went for it.
Niagara School of Brewing?
No, at the time Niagara wasn't open yet.
Okay.
I went to the American Brewers Guild, which is located in Vermont, and just did that course there. And the whole time that we were doing that, I mean, Tooth and Nail was always the end result. With my background and my wife's background in the hospitality industry, we knew we wanted to brew pub. We knew we wanted people to buy our beer at the peak of freshness and the peak of quality under our control. And really just just putting together a really nice space for guests to come in and be comfortable and enjoy the products and socialize and maybe throw their phones down for a second, have some face-to-face, and really create that experience for them.
How long has Tooth and Nail been here?
We're going to be 6 years in about a month.
Okay.
Yeah. Crazy. I don't like the last year and a half kind of doesn't count, but so we're 4.5.
Yeah. It's been an interesting 17 months going on.
Yeah, pretty wild ride for sure.
Why the name Tooth and Nail? I know it's kind of like the last dog, the last fighting the dog type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the question that's maybe asked the most to me in tours and interviews and things like that. It's actually kind of a simple concept, is that it's really an homage to the first American craft breweries. So Sierra Nevada, Anchor, Boston Beer, Sam Adams. You know, the idea is that they had to fight tooth and nail just to get a bar to put their beer on tap, just to get a liquor store to put their beer on the shelf, because that beer was weird back then, right? Like, it was really weird stuff. And the idea is that without these kind of forefathers having fought tooth and nail to make this happen, you know, this dream probably would be a much more challenging reality. So it's really just a tip of the hat to them. And I mean, you could even go a little further and talk about Ottawa in general, you know, a brewery like Beau's coming out in 2006 when it was a barren wasteland. You know, we had Harp before they closed their doors, I think at the end of the 90s, I'm not sure. You know, Heritage Brewing Company eventually kind of became Kitchissippi, et cetera, et cetera. So really a tip of the hat to anybody who kind of paved the way for us to be able to just cruise in here, open shop, and hit the ground running.
You mentioned Boston Beer Company. Obviously, Youngling is coming on about 100 years old
Crazy.
at affiliates.
Yeah.
So there's always been room for craft. It's just these guys can't afford, you know, to be on every second commercial during Super Bowl.
Well, this is it, right? I mean, there's such an audience out there for this kind of beer. I don't even think it's a kind of beer anymore. It's beer. Mm-hmm. But with everything going on in, you know, whatever decades, the 40s right through to the 90s, I mean, there was no other option in North America. You go to Europe and there's beers abound, but really, you know, craft brewing's just bringing tradition and history back. There's the weird era is, you know, that middle period where there was nothing but industrial light lager.
Yeah, but now we're, as craft beer drinker myself, as a consumer, as somebody who likes supporting local Canadian companies or even local, when I'm able to go to America again, supporting the local America, it's like
sure.
My options are boundless now, and I kind of really like that. So.
You can find anything you like.
Yeah. So creating the Tooth and Nail brand, what kind of like roadblocks, difficulties did you kind of run into, like location issue, kind of permits, anything like that?
There are definitely, you know, all kinds of hurdles and roadblocks along the way. I kind of think for what I've seen from peers and other people, our opening was somewhat seamless. I mean, we had put a lot of work and energy into figuring it out well before we even started raising money. Raising the money was an interesting time. You know, you talk to lots of different people with lots of different ideas and ambitions, and finding those people that are actually in line with you. And, you know, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Like, I'm here to make beer first and foremost. It's a tough gig to make a lot of money at the end of the day, and I think that over the course of a lot of time, should you be able to get a reputation and a brand and establish yourself, I'm hoping the money will come one day, and assuming, but when you have a lot of investors and people who are looking to the craft beer craze and they want to put their money into it, I mean, these people want their money back in 3 years, and it's just like, that's not the plan that I have. No. My plan is to make the best beer I know how to do, and you know what, like, we'll see what happens with the money. So finding people to contribute to that idea is actually pretty challenging. People with a lot of money just want to make a lot of money really fast. So anyways, that all ended up working out great for us. Obviously, you know, the biggest thing about opening a brewery is you think it's going to take 4 months, and that's ridiculous. You know, it probably takes an average of 9 to 12 months to get it going. So that was a bit of a hurdle, but I'd say overall things went pretty well, I think.
I'm sure eventually the day that you know, were able to cut the ribbon and have customers in, you're just like, finally, like, it's here, let's do this.
Oh, it was awesome. And I remember the night, so we had a guest VIP party. I hate the term VIP, but I don't know what else to call it. And it was the people who did the construction on the place, friends, family, any tradespeople we had to hire. And we had this private party in here, and I think at the time we only had 2 beers on tap, maybe 3. And the night before that party, we had just wrapped up everything and just been dusted and mopped, and I was sitting at the end of the bar with my wife, Dana, who's my partner as well, and we just sat there and we were just like, it was so surreal that we actually pulled it off. And then we opened and I realized we haven't pulled anything off yet. But that was a pretty special moment for sure. Yeah, I'll never forget it.
Because you guys are a lot of word of mouth I came across. Whenever I visited other breweries in the Ottawa, as I call it, Franco, Ontario region, a lot of people highly recommend yourself, and Vimy is also very popular, Dominion City. So you're always like one of those top 3 to 5 that everybody's like, if you're in Ottawa, come and see these guys. So obviously you have very passionate customers who are highly tout your beer, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. What's beer number 2 I'm going to be trying here?
That one there, I believe, is Lucidity. So that's just kind of a summer pale ale we've been doing. The way I approach recipes is I'll usually start out with something reasonably complicated, and then I just kind of start hitting the cutting floor. So if I have 5 malts, I want to know if I can get it down to 2 or 3 instead. If I've got all these different hop combinations, what can I take out of there to simplify that recipe? And as I've gone through the years, I've found that the most simple recipes are actually the most flavorful. It seems kind of opposite to it. So it's a really simple beer, 4.4% alcohol. I just wanted to have a little bit of a nice hoppy summer refreshing beer that was low in ABV. Not much else to say. I mean, it's predominantly Mosaic and Cascade. There's a little bit of Citra in there at one part of the process. Not designed to be a hazy IPA, not designed to be anything like that. It's just, most of the beers we just approach from a very, very focused drinkability kind of thing,
Yeah, it's got the classic like summer pale ale smell on the nose. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, sir. Toast.
You'll find that all of our beers generally drink quite dry. It's really an important feature. We try to dry them out as best as we can while still respecting the balance of flavors.
Super light, very crushable.
Yeah.
It's this is another like patio, or in Quebec as we call it, a terrasse.
Sure.
It's one of those patio terrasse beers. It's very tasty.
I mean, this summer is awesome. Like our entire lineup was based on all kinds of like diverse flavors, but all under the umbrella of having low alcohol, high drinkability, like terrasse beers, as you say. Yeah. And we were really, really, really pleased with the diversity that we came out with.
Now, I find a lot of craft beers common is the bigger cans. What made you guys decide to go with like your classic kind of 355 milliliters?
Oh man, I could give you 1,000 answers, but there are probably 2 honest answers that I could give to that question, because there's another very popular question that I get, and I think the 2 really honest answers are: number 1, having experience before I opened Tooth and Nail in brewing, I noticed lots of different aluminum and can shortages coming through every now and then. And I thought, well, if we choose a can that's not popular, we're not really going to necessarily have to face those shortages. Now we have, and we currently are in the midst of something like that. Now, the popularity of sparkling water, the popularity of things like that has certainly dipped into the can supply. But really at the end of the day, I just really like the portion size. Ottawa's a very recreational and very active town. People are always outdoors doing things. So you're not always outdoors with a glass. Often you're drinking from the can. And if I'm drinking from a 16-ounce can, like that last couple of sips becomes pretty gross. And so there was a conscious effort, knowing the type of market we were in and enjoying drinking beer outside ourselves, that it was just a better size, just a better portion. It's crazy. I see some of these breweries, and I probably couldn't even mention one, but there was a period of time where someone's 4% beer was coming in a can like this, and their barley wine was in a big can, and I'm like, you got it all backwards, man. Like, So yeah, I think that's probably the most honest answer I could give.
No, simple, straightforward.
Differentiates ourselves in the marketplace too, right? Which is, the marketplace is pretty noisy. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a lot of beer out there from a lot of breweries, and a lot of stuff that just looks the same on the shelf, and a lot of people mimicking other things they've seen. And so it can kind of be overwhelming when you go into a store and you have this wall of craft beer, and it's like, okay, I don't know what to choose, right?
So do you do the graphic design, like the names, who comes up with kind of the names, the art behind it?
I don't do the design itself. We have a designer who lives in Toronto. He's an old friend. And we have an extremely good and collaborative relationship. So when it comes to the beer names, I name them. The beer names have evolved over time a little bit, but in the beginning, the beers were named after traits that you would need to win a fight. So the tooth and nail fighting theme, right? So tenacity, fortitude, vim vigor, stamina, you know, those types of things. And then from there, we still kind of hold a little bit into that, but all of the beers are named specifically for the vision of what that beer is. And there's a story behind every name, and I relay that story to the designer. I relay the alcohol level, the color of the beer, bitterness, sweetness, flavor, palate. I give him everything that he can just peruse these 3 paragraphs I've put together, and then generally he tries to come up with collages of old world art that exists, collages, puts them together, and tries to create some fun, some irony. I mean, some of them are quite abstract, some of them are really, you know, hitting the nail on the head and things like that. So.
And you got a nice little story on the back of each can, from what I've seen.
Yeah, not all of them, but we'll get there one day. Yeah, just and that's another fun thing is it's just tying that paragraph into the beer, which ties into the illustration, which ties into the whole experience of drinking that beer. I look at brewing beer from a very artistic standpoint, and I like the extension of that art to go through into the package. I just started collecting vinyl records in the last year, and I just love opening those things up. I love, like I was a kid, like every CD I had, I'd just sit there and read the liner notes for hours on end while listening to it. So this is, like the artwork and the presentation of these beers is, to me, just equally as fulfilling as brewing them, you know.
What was the first beer you ever brewed?
Here or
at home
myself?
And here.
So the first beer I ever brewed, I had actually started studying brewing before I ever home brewed, which is completely ass backwards compared to what people usually do. So, you know, I got the money together, I knew what I was gonna do. I went out to this homebrew store, I bought all these equipment, and I knew that I was hell-bent on not doing an extract brew. It had to be all grain, it had to be pure, it had to be all this stuff. And like, it's actually really quite tricky when you don't know what you're doing. So I ended up brewing an IPA in this 2-bedroom apartment, 2nd floor apartment in Toronto. And it took me like 14 hours. I was so excited when I woke up, I just started brewing in my pajamas. So I was in my pajamas all day. I did all kinds of things to try and heat and cool like this mash that was in 20-liter pails, and I got first-degree burns all over my body. It took like 14 hours from the time I thought I knew what I was doing until I pitched some yeast in there. There was so much stuff, so many ingredients on the kitchen floor. I could have just pitched yeast onto the floor and come back in a couple of weeks and probably had enough beer. And the grain mill I purchased didn't work, so I actually ended up crushing all the grain with a rolling pin on the kitchen counter. So I called it Rolling Pin IPA, and I ended up with 10 full bottles, short bottles.
Stubbies?
Well, I used the Christofel Blonde bottles, which were, they have the pop top. Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it was a pretty wicked memory. Second brew went way better.
Okay.
Second brew went way better.
And then Tooth and Nail's first beer?
Tooth and Nail's first beer, so I brewed our beer Stamina, and that was brewed on August 19th, which is this Thursday coming up in 2015.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so you
And that was a crazy story too, because I bought this mash tun, and I had worked at a brewery where we had the grains were pre-milled for us, and we dumped them in the man-way as we were mashing in. The thing I didn't really think about is I didn't have a rake in this mash tun. I bought it without rakes. So it dawned on us, we don't know how we're gonna get the malt hydrated. I had no auger. So there was a guy from Premier Stainless in California who was here helping me set it all up, and he looked out the front door. There was construction out the front door. So he went and grabbed a pylon, like a road pylon, flipped it upside down. We inserted the pylon into the grist hydrator up there. He would hand me bags as I was standing on the top of the mash tun, trying to run these bags through the grist hydrator and holding on for dear life to like the metal I-beam up there. Like it was ridiculous. So anyways, I ordered a grain auger pretty fast after that.
Yeah.
Went through a couple of months of some pretty dicey mash-ins, but
pretty sure startup is, well, I know where we live in Quebec, it's called CSST, so workman's comp. I'm pretty sure they come in, they're like, yeah, no, sorry.
No, they would not enjoy that.
We're not paying it.
No,
So.
and the thing is like I did a lot of things right in setting this brewery up. Mm-hmm. It's just that was a pretty big oversight, and especially, for somebody who had worked in the brewing industry for several years before, so that's the one where my tail goes between my legs a bit,
What's number 3 I'm having here?
So that's Tenacity Pale Ale. That would have been the second beer we brewed at Tooth and Nail, actually. Tenacity was really inspired by us putting this brewery together. We drank copious amounts of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale because it had just arrived in Canada that summer. And so, you can taste Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in that beer. And when we first brewed it, we used a combination of whole cone hops and pellets. And then managing the whole cone hops became a little bit of a challenge. And then we got really busy here, and I never really looked at it again. But we recently actually have changed that recipe to be brewed with 100% whole cone Centennial and Cascade. So you're looking at, more of that 90s pale ale as opposed to the pale ales today that have no bitterness and are just taste like, tropical fruit juice.
Yeah.
This has got, there's a malt backbone, there's a lot of bitterness, there's, your classic C hop, grapefruit, pine. I find Centennial gives a lot of like Fruit Loops cereal aromas and flavors. And we're really thrilled with the way it turned out. We're going to be adopting that program for a number of our beers now.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cheers.
Toast. Is that a little bit of resinous I'm getting to?
A little bit on the finish, yeah. Yeah, I've got some pretty strong opinions on beer styles, and to me that's what a pale ale is. Pale ales and IPAs have certainly evolved way past what they were ever intended to be, and a lot of those beers are absolutely delicious, don't get me wrong, but I look at some of these things as from just more of a traditionalist point of view and more of a classic point of view. Everything that we do here, from the artwork to the beers and everything, we try and really kind of create this classic brand. And what I mean by classic is the question my designer and I had in putting the entire look of the brewery together was, what would have been relevant 100 years ago and what will be relevant 100 years from now, without worrying about the ripples of trends and the ripples of marketing and the ripples of all the different things that coerce people into maybe sometimes not even deciding for themselves what they like. People tend to really like what their friends like, right? So that's a lot of where that beer comes from.
That kind of leads into one of my next questions. So you have somebody come in who's a classic BMC, so Bud Most Coors drinker. Mm-hmm. What's kind of like a couple of gateway beers that you're like, here, try this? If you're drinking Labatt 50, here, try this. And maybe...
Well, Vim Vigor's been our biggest seller since we first started it, and it's an approachable beer style. I think people who are coming in to look for those beers are often a little bit alarmed by the high degree of bitterness in it, because none of those beers have any bitterness in them. Mm-hmm. But there's still a familiar flavor there with the lager yeast. Lager yeasts really just showcase malt flavors and things. I don't think that they are necessarily prepared for how flavorful it is. A lot of those beers, the whole brewing process is, you've got this beer that's brewed with all natural ingredients, and the process has to actually take those natural flavors and actually remove them, right, to create something that is a little less flavorful, a little more, high carbonation, low flavor. Like, they're not really beers for people who enjoy beer.
I've personally converted my brother-in-law and my father into craft beer.
Oh, so they'll never go back. They might dive out there and have a Bud every now and then, but you never. It's a one-way trajectory.
Yeah, no, my father will still have like a Molson or whatever, but whenever I go out, he's like, "Well, where are you going?" I'm going to the beer store. I'll pick me up a 4-pack of IPAs, whatever you think I might like. I'm like, okay, whatever I think you might like. So here's a double New England IPA you've never tried before, and he's like, "Oh, it's like drinking juice. What's the alcohol? It's 9%. No, it's not. Yes, it is."
Yeah.
It's that's one of the
that's the wonderful
things.
thing about small batch beers. Is like even on our lineup on any given day on our draft lineup, like I brew beers so that there is a diversity of flavors, so that if you bring your dad in and he doesn't like this or that, well, there's going to be something he likes in there, right? And so it's really important for us to kind of look at this classic historical beer styles and extrapolate from those. Sometimes we do really innovative, inventive things, and sometimes we do, a beer style right to the T of exactly what it's supposed to be. So it's fun.
It's awesome. So I know you guys have obviously, this brewery itself was kind of a collaboration. Have you brewed or made any products collab-wise with any local businesses or provincial or anything like that?
I have generally, for the most part, shied away from collaborations for various reasons. First of all, when you are a brewer and a business owner who's running a pub, a store, and a production facility, there's not a lot of time to go around. There are a lot of collaborations that I find are really uninspired, and it's kind of just an excuse for two friends to get together and have a great day while their head brewer kind of brews the beer and they go off into the bar and get drunk all day and have a good time. There's nothing wrong with that. That's super fun. It just doesn't really inspire me very much. I'm currently working on a collaboration that's very elaborate that I'm not really at liberty to talk about, but should be released in, I'm hoping, about a month. And there are a number of beers that are being released at one time, and there's a focus and a theme to it, and artwork, and all these different things that kind of drive me passionately and the other brewer. And so that kind of thing I would probably focus on more in the future going forward. But we've done some collabs, like we did some stuff with Stone City back in the day. I think I've collabed with Indie Ale House. I can't even remember. There are certain Great Lakes Brewery, Amsterdam, like some of my friends from Toronto. Some of those things have happened, but yeah, few and far between.
Are there a couple of guys who you'd kind of love to work with if you had a chance, let's say anywhere in North America or?
Oh, that's such an awesome question.
So.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some, obviously driven by history and driven by tradition and passion and things like that. I think that what Granite Brewery in Toronto has done over the last 30 years, and I think it's the 30th anniversary right now, to be able to go and brew a beer with them and understand the English side of brewing. People think English brewing's easy, but it's easy to brew an English beer. It's not easy to make it taste really amazing, and they've done a remarkable job at that. I did my apprenticeship at the Lost Abbey in San Diego, California, and to be able to go back there and brew a beer with Tommy Arthur would be pretty awesome. I think that De La Seine is a brewery in Belgium I would love to work with. I've had a few nights out with Yvon de Betz in Toronto and really just seem to kind of be very like-minded in our approach to beer and what we like, and just the discussions were really profound and really awesome, so that'd be pretty fun. I don't know. It's a big question. I'm sure I'm missing lots of stuff, but yeah, just I'm just really, really moved and inspired by those who have inspired beer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense. It's awesome. I mean, you literally have Gatineau right across the river. You guys could probably chuck beers at each other without.
Well, they can't sell them over there, which sucks.
I know. That's
it's insane.
As a Canadian craft beer drinker, as Reagan said to Gorbachev, break down those walls.
It's the most illogical damn thing that we deal. It makes It makes no sense. And you know what? There are lots of things in politics and in rules and in life that make no sense, and really it just takes somebody to pay attention to the ridiculousness of it to change it. But I had a friend who got married in a building that was split on the border, but he got married on the Quebec side, and he wanted to buy my beer, and I couldn't sell it to him for his wedding. Like we're talking total insanity.
Yeah. I know. It's very frustrating as somebody who loves supporting Canadian businesses. I can't support as many Canadian businesses as I like to.
That's right. So
it's
break down the walls. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
I just like that, and somehow make Vermont Canada too, so we could also get all of them.
I mean, Vermont's got a lot more than just beer, man.
Oh,
the place is awesome.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, so speaking of I know borders are closed right now and travel is nuts, but say a year from now, there's a lot less pandemic, a lot more restrictions are gone. Things are going up smooth. You actually have time to take a vacation. But you want to focus it on beer. What's that beercation you'd love to take?
I mean, I've certainly had a few. I guess the first question would be: is it for work or is this just
For play.
For play.
For play.
I mean, I could spend my whole life just wandering around Belgium, tasting everything. You know, I'm a huge fan of Belgian beer. We do a few of them here, but they're not. You know, the drinking public in Ottawa is not probably doesn't have much of a palate for that kind of beer, so they tend to not sell too quickly. And I do have a business to run, so
Yes.
we always have something Belgian. I'd love to have way more, but yeah, I think just cruising around all the little villages in Belgium and doing that would be pretty awesome. And right now, I'd like to really go and dive deep and really rediscover English cask ale. And I've got a number of brewing friends and I who are all kind of on the same page with that. So that's why I asked work versus pleasure. But the work beer trips are pretty pleasurable. So I think there might be a group of us that try and tackle that one as soon as we can and just go around the countryside in England and just discover. It's this really fascinating kind of brewing, right? Living beer that basically when it leaves the brewery, it's up to the pub owner as to whether that beer is going to taste good or not, which I think is really, really awesome.
Well, I did when coming in your tap room now. Obviously, you're not having as many guests in right now, unfortunately, due to state of emergency circumstances. But you do have the hand-drawn cask, which I saw, which I'm always personally, I'm always immediately drawn to whenever I walk into.
Oh, I can't wait to start filling them again. The thing is, for those though, like we could put one on a Friday night, and when we used to do it, often it'd be gone by like 8 o'clock. If it was a style, a lot of people aren't drinking dark beers as much as light beers, so if it was a stout or a porter or something, it might last until Saturday. But I look forward to getting back to that program. I love it when they're fresh, and it's funny because you can tap it, and it's actually going to taste better, you know, maybe the next day or later in the night. So if ever I see cask ale on tap somewhere, I always try and find out when it was tapped and try and get it, like, because I think the beer gets a little bit oxidized and these flavors for a flash of time peak at this really huge sensation of, you know, everything singing in harmony together, and like that's the best beer you're ever gonna have.
Yeah, I love the concept, and like I said, as soon as I see it, I'm like, that's it, that's the one I'm starting with, and then I'll try everything else.
Sure.
So you mentioned porters. This looks like a porter or a stout I'm trying last.
Yeah, that's our stout, Fortitude. So Fortitude's kind of a blend of different concepts and styles. You know, some would call it an oatmeal stout, but the hopping is too high to fit that category. Some would call it an American stout, but the late hopping is too low to get that. So really when I think of stout, I always have this picture of sitting in a pub and it's maybe kind of cloudy or raining out and there's some really appropriate music and you're sitting there, whether you're reading a book or talking to a friend, and you want just a real big, meaty mouthful of flavor that you can kind of, it sits with you a while. It's funny because I generally drink stouts slower because there's a lot to contemplate in that sip. Mm-hmm. And so, we nitrogenate it for our tap and taps around the bars we sell it and stuff. I'd like to get that done in the can eventually, but it's pretty tough in a brewery this small to afford those contraptions and bring mobile canning in to do it and stuff. We've looked at it, and hopefully in the future we can pull that off because I much prefer it like this. But we've had it on tap in the bar and done pulls, and we've had it carbonated and nitrogenated, and the public's pretty like split 50-50 on it. When it's carbonated in the can, the hops come out a lot more. You actually get a little bit of hop flavor and some aroma coming through there, and that's what the CO2 does, but I prefer it like this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Toast.
There you go.
Ooh, incredibly smooth.
Now I'm wanting a stout.
Well, we don't have much longer left, so you can go grab it.
It's all good.
One question I always love to ask, that you're in a lot more open area. Somebody comes to Tooth and Nail, tries all your beers. What are some friends in the area you suggest they check out as well?
Oh man, I mean, Ottawa's got all kinds of stuff. You know, you'd mentioned Vimy. I don't know the guys all that well, but they're only a couple of blocks up here. And then a couple of blocks this way is Beyond the Pale, great friends of mine. Awesome beers, huge big patio, great big brewery, lots of innovative, you know, programs going there with, painted skateboard decks on the walls and different art exhibits and things like that. So that's always fun. I generally just look for great beer overall. You mentioned that you were at Kitchissippi. Phil's pumping out some pretty amazing lagers, which I'm a big fan of. Dominion City, obviously, they're on the other end of town for sure, so you might need to grab yourself a car or an Uber. Like those are the ones I'd probably jump to. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other friends that would just totally kick me in the head for not mentioning them, but yeah, any of that. I mean, the quality of beer in Ottawa in the last 5 years or so. Flora Hall opened, they're making great products. The quality of the beer in Ottawa has just escalated so much that, before we opened the brewery, there were some breweries here, but I was struggling to find some things that I wanted to drink, and now there's no shortage of anything, so.
Yeah, plus, I hit everything in Ottawa. Gatineau's right there.
That's
Gatineau's
right.
just
and it's
to
really
no
funny,
end.
the Gatineau's right there and all this, and I've been I wouldn't necessarily consider myself the beer fan I used to be, because I would always travel everywhere and try everything. And with 2 little kids and running your business with your wife, it's tough to get out. And especially for the first few years when my son was just a baby, it's like you're not going out anywhere together. So we're just kind of rediscovering this opportunity to get out and try things. So I'm not always the best person to ask about what's available. But, like when I lived in Toronto, every time I'd come to Ottawa, I was calling all my friends and saying, I'm going to be at Brasseur du Temps from 7, or well, I guess at that time, like 9 o'clock till close. So come meet me there. And I would just go and drink all those beers, right? And now even Gatineau itself, I mean, you've got Bas Canada, you got Cinquième Baron, you've got, it's just, there's just so much great stuff available, so. Yeah. But Quebec used to really, really blow me away in terms of quality, and, Ontario caught up in a hurry. And so between the 2 provinces, and you throw BC in there, I mean, the Canadian craft beer is world-class stuff coming out. It's amazing.
I mean, speaking of which, you have a bunch of Canadian beer awards that I saw while you were coming in. What were some of those, like, how did that feel, getting that award from? The first
year was super fun.
Yeah.
The first year we had barely been open, and I just submitted a few beers, and we ended up winning 4 awards that year, and it was my first business trip anywhere, hopping on a plane, going to BC and going to the Brewing Awards, and I met so many people, and that was just like the second our brewery had the opportunity to kind of be on the map a little bit. So that was really awesome. The awards are fun. I mean, I've got a lot of, I don't have mixed feelings on awards. I really enjoy entering them. I didn't enter the Canadian Brewing Awards this year for a lot of different kind of personal reasons and ideas and things like that. But there are a lot of people who are down on awards, and that's fine. It's kind of a controversial topic when you're talking to other brewers. But what I like about awards, and I've said this to just about everyone, is I think that one of the major reasons we've got such incredible North American beer is because of the Great American Beer Festival and the competition there. And if you look at Americans are extraordinarily competitive people. It's ingrained in their blood to be the best. Mm-hmm. And so that drove a burgeon or a kind of growing craft beer scene. I mean, they take so much pride in the Great American Beer Festival. It's incredible. And I think that the quality of beer that we have today would not be what it is without the Great American Beer Festival. And so I enjoy competitions because it pushes me to brew the best damn thing I know how. It's pushed me all the time to always be doing our best. And I just think that I like, to me it's not about the award, it's about being pushed to do that. The award is a recognition for my staff, for my brewers, for all these things that is always a nice pat on the back, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's more just the whole idea of pushing ourselves and if you own a business, you have to be a little bit competitive. So why wouldn't you translate that into what you're doing? It's interesting because I approach brewing from such an artistic side. You would think that competition doesn't enter that, but I am who I am. I can't.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't
No,
change
it's good.
that.
Unfortunately, until the pandemic, as a show, we actually had plans to travel upstate New York, so Saratoga Springs and above, and it's like, oh, Vermont's right there, oh, Maine's not too far away, so it's like, oh, let's do a seafood weekend and interview a bunch of breweries, and
Yeah, I'd get on that
and
trip.
now it's like, oh, well, let's go to Toronto instead, and instead of the closer place, that's a hop, skip, and a jump, or hop in the car for 6 hours
Sure.
and spending multiple days on ends doing interviews and speaking with passionate people yourselves is what kind of drives us to do what we do as well. So
Right.
It's always good to hear that, it's kind of a kick in the butt in a sense. So.
Yeah. We were fortunate enough to be able to pour Vim Vigor at a beer festival called Pills and Love a couple of years ago, and that was in Portland, Maine. They used to. I hope they resume it, but does Portland, Maine 1 year, and then Los Angeles kind of county the next year, and they go back and forth between Oxbow Brewery and Firestone Walker, and they host this festival of nothing but Pilsners. There's like 88 Pilsners, and in Portland, it's like on the side of the ocean, under a tent, most incredible experience. And you were asking about beercations. Like, that was like one of the greatest events and kind of one of the greatest experiences I had from a beer festival perspective. And like, just to go back to Portland, Maine and eat seafood and drink all the incredible beer in that town, like that would maybe be up there on a beercation as well.
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot to do, and I have hopes that humanity's going to beat this pandemic like they did the last 100 years
Sure.
ago. So it's just a matter of time. What's next for the Tooth and Nail brand should kind of stay where we are right now, and things slowly reopen a little more. What's next? Obviously, I'm guessing small anniversary party if you could do that.
Yeah, the anniversary party used to be a big party, and we for every year we had a very special kind of Belgian-inspired barrel-aged beer, blended beer that would come out every year. And unfortunately, the way the pandemic has hit, we went around and tasted some of the barrels that we have, and I'm not pleased with the way they're tasting. So we're unfortunately going to scrap that plan this year. We're brewing an anniversary lager, and every year we do an anniversary IPA called Red Letter Day. Maybe one of my favorite beers we do here, and we only brew it once a year, so it's weird. I don't know what we're going to do. I think maybe we can't have a big party, really, so I'm thinking maybe a week-long celebration. We just got, right before the pandemic hit, we got a one-barrel-sized pilot brewing system. It's pretty kick-ass. And we just started brewing a couple of ideas on there, just kind of flexing the muscles of the system to see what it can handle, how it's going to work. So maybe we'll, release a whole bunch of little like one-barrel one-offs or something like that that week. Or I have a ton of Brett beers in the warehouse that we've had forever that, I think maybe we could do a Brett festival. We're not known for that stuff, but our Brett beers are really good. So I would really love to do something like that. I think it'd be fun. But yeah, it's tough to focus down the road right now. Like, every day is just so immediate, and like, what do we have to tackle today? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I had lots of ideas. The pandemic did nothing but fuel ideas. So now I got to sort through them. And do we want to open any more brew pubs? Do we want to open a production facility? Do we want to just hang tight? Like, I'm not sure. We're just trying to sort through all the cobwebs of COVID and all the. You have lots of great ideas and lots of terrible ones. So,
Awesome.
But I think the future looks good. Like, we're excited for it. So. Yeah, just keep putting our heads down and doing what we do.
Yeah. Like I said, you're always one of the more highly recommended places whenever I'm out in this area. So your word of mouth alone, you guys are obviously super popular, solid beers as well. It's different because everybody's let's do New England, so let's do these crazy like 18 lactose stouts, and you're sticking with more kind of traditional styles as well, which is a curveball to a lot of people like me who's like, oh, I want to try that New England, I want to try this. But then sticking with like your type of old school styles, as you say, the forefathers of beer styles, it's good to kind of step back into it. So.
Yeah, I get really tired of the same. Yeah. Whether it's in music, whether it's in art, whether it's in beer or whatever. I like to comb my own path, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome. So this has been great. I really appreciate the time you took out of your schedule to speak with us today.
My pleasure.
I have no other questions for you, so let the audience know where they can find you.
Awesome. So we're in Ottawa, 3 Irving Avenue in the neighborhood of Hintonburg. You know, we have an Instagram account that's probably pretty neglected a lot. We have a new website launching, so you can go to toothandnailbeer.com, and right now our online retail store is up there, and hopefully by the time this airs, our new website is up there, and it's looking pretty tight and pretty glitzy and glammy, and we're pretty excited for that. So yeah, come give us a visit. Check us out at different bars in Toronto and Ottawa and beyond, and there you go.
Awesome. So that's all going to be in the show notes. If you're ever in the Ottawa area, come and check these guys out. Add them to your Ottawa beer road trip. As for us, allbeerinside.com is the website. Add All Beer Inside on all social media. And as I say in the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.